What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Jay Rich, back for another episode of Across the Pod with my main man Tom, coming off a not so great game week 27, but game week 28 is here. We're ready to preview it all for you. Tom, I think we'll have to have a discussion about Cole Palmer because once again, he was not good. Salah captain should be about universal by now. I don't think that'll be much of a difficult decision for us. But how are you doing, my friend? Because we have Mateta getting kicked in the head, Cunha getting banned, and lots of other things coming into a blank game week 29 with lots of teams unavailable for many, many FPL managers.
Yeah, I feel like we've already come to a disagreement in your first statement there. Like, I think I'm going to captain Palmer this week. So not a great start for us. Yeah, no, it's nice to be back. We can unpack it all. Mateta getting decapitated, not good. I brought in Cunha this week for a red card, which is also not good.
Lewis Hall out for the year?
Lewis Hall out for the year, bit of a disaster. And obviously as a Newcastle fan, Gordon banned as well. Yeah, it's not looking good, bro. But yeah, I'm happy. I'm looking forward to getting into it this week.
Yeah, this is an interesting week because there's so many favorable matchups for top clubs. So it'll be interesting to see how you want to build your team, how you want to bring players in or choose not to with the blank game week coming up. But let's start, as we always do, with your beautiful slides that you have for us previewing the game week 28. So let's get into it, Tom. Where do you want to get started with this game week?
Yeah, I think, there's only... The thing is with this game week, there's not too many exciting fixtures. I think the ones to target are the ones with over expected 2 goals. Palace, obviously without Mateta, it's like, do you want to take a short-term punt on Nketiah? But then they blank in game week 29 anyway. I've seen a few people going to Nketiah, but I don't really see that. I like Eze if you have him, but again, unless you're free hitting in 29, I don't really see the value in bringing in any Crystal Palace assets this week. Obviously, if you have Munoz, you're pretty well suited because he seems to be one of their top goal scorers. Literally. And at home to Ipswich, probably the best defender other than Trent you can have this week. And speaking of Trent, just that Liverpool fixture, 3.45 goals. You're expecting Trent to do well. And I imagine most people are going to have Trent and Salah probably captain. And I think that's probably the smartest way to go about it. The only thing that I would say for me personally is that Chelsea fixture. I just think Leicester at home is a great fixture to bounce back on. Palmer, if you watched the game last game week, he should have had like 3 goals, a couple of assists.
Ton of shots,
crazy. Yeah. Meanwhile, like Salah plays terrible and still scores every week, and like played pretty badly against PSG. The only thing I think that they might manage his minutes a little bit against Southampton if they're not winning the game. But again, I think it's tough to go against Salah this week, even though I personally am considering Palmer. I'm probably 50-50, which is just that seems really stupid. But yeah.
Okay, so here's my counterpoint to that. And while I do agree with you in some extent about Palmer, if I'm being honest about the minutes side of things, because they played PSG obviously a couple days ago, they're going to play them again next week, and then they still have the cup game against Newcastle, which, I mean, that team at this point, they're not going to have to play that hard. But it's going to be a tough game against PSG, even though they won. It will be at Anfield, which is good for them. And I would agree, if we're talking about minutes, I would expect Palmer to play more minutes than Salah. Like, I really would. If we're just being honest, if everything goes according to plan, both teams score 3 goals, Liverpool scores 4 goals, like Salah could come up in the 60th minute or something, and maybe there is the unfortunate side of things where he doesn't score or he doesn't get an assist because everyone else is involved. And, I mean, against Southampton, why do they care, right? It's not a big thing for them. Versus Chelsea, where you've talked about it a lot, Palmer can get a pen, and they've gotten quite a few pens throughout the season and can score that way. Or he'll stay on until he scores. We've seen that happen a couple times as well, where it's like he's on, and then, it may be 3-0, but he stays on the pitch, and then he scores finally, and then he comes off after that. So if we're being honest about minutes, I do think there's a world where Palmer will play more minutes than Salah because both these teams should blow out the other. But it still has me worried. Like, I still don't know if I want to buy into the fact that Palmer's going to be good when he's been so poor. And again, when you talk about goal involvements, I believe that Salah's like at 45, if not % higher, and definitely top of the league in that respect as well. So just in pure goal involvement standpoint, if they're projected to score more goals and Salah has more goal involvement percentage than Cole Palmer does, you probably still want to captain Salah. Again, it's a little chalky for me. I'm trying to make up some places, especially with this team. We're trying to make up some spots a little bit. You want to be differential, but you may pay for it in the end if you don't captain Salah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for me, I'm chasing rank with Palmer captain. The only other thing I would say is like the stats for Salah are so much better But the eye test of watching Chelsea play and Liverpool play last week, Palmer should have came out with way more points than Mo Salah. Obviously, Salah got one assist,
Yeah.
but still wasn't super involved in the game or get a goal or anything like that. Palmer should have scored. Like, his expected goals are probably really high. I just think he's involved in every passage of play for Chelsea. He's their main talisman, whereas Liverpool are just playing so fluid that Szoboszlai scores, Jota, Gakpo, Nunes, whoever, well, not Nunes, but whoever's on the pitch is most likely to score. So yeah, and beyond that, I don't think there's many other exciting games this week. I'm trying to think about a path to get Erling Haaland back in my team, whether it's this week or whether it's for 29. I kind of want him for that fixture against Brighton at home.
Yeah.
But again, Forest away, not a fantastic game this week. Man United Arsenal is going to be tough for both teams to break each other down. I imagine Man United are going to play 5 at the back. Fernandes probably sit in the middle, or he might play as a 10 again, but I can just see them sitting back and not doing really too much. Arsenal will probably, I mean, they scored 7 in midweek, so they could potentially come and do the same at United. We've kind of seen that. But other than that, there's not many fixtures there which really excite me. A lot of people going Brighton, they have a game in 29 as well. You could go with Mitoma. I'm not even like
Yeah.
João Pedro again managed to like do well for whoever's held him from the start of the season. I'm not sure who that is, but not really too many of the fixtures that excite me this week.
Yeah, like the ones that I've been looking at is, Nottingham Forest and City is very interesting. I think that Forest is going to play super defensive. I'm not necessarily expecting City to score 2 goals, but it seems like they either play very, very well or they play very poorly. And I think that's the hard part with City right now is that while I still believe they're capable of scoring 4 on Forest, I just don't know if we're actually going to see it this weekend. I much prefer Brentford, especially with Villa playing midweek. I think there's a really good chance they have a good game at home against Villa and could put up a big number there. And then Tottenham Bournemouth is another one that I always think just has that potential for 4 or 5 goals. You see it there basically at 2 apiece and could be even higher than that. So I'm sure a lot of people will continue to have Bournemouth players in their team. I think Kluivert's still number 1 for sure. And then we'll see because Evan Nielsen, I believe, played midweek as well. So he should be back and probably starting for Bournemouth this week. So I think I'm kind of with you there. Not much else that I'm really checking in on. Newcastle, West Ham. Hopefully they win, but it's not looking good, bruv.
Yeah, so that kind of brings me to the players to target for this week then. And also thinking players to target for longer term. The reason I've got the fixtures on the left are it's not this game week, it's for game week 29. I think if you're not free hitting in 29, we kind of have to plan your transfers to someone that's going to be good for the long term, but also have a fixture in 29. So these are the teams that we want to get the players from. And I think I've got the players which are the best for each position. So for defenders, I've got these 4. I think Cucurella, Chelsea obviously hit and miss defensively. I keep banging on about having him, but he scored again last game week. I can see them getting clean sheets. I just think he's a good, potential player. The issue is his fixture in 29 is Arsenal away, which isn't a great fixture. So not really too sure on, and also the price point there. You could also go for someone like Colwell or otherwise, but one to consider. Ait Nouri is one that I'm seeing the majority of like the FPL community pick up, and you can see why from like historic FPL seasons, but also earlier in the season, he gets goals, he gets assists. He hasn't performed great this year, to be honest with you, just with how bad Wolves have been. And obviously they had that awful run of fixtures and it seems like they're out the other side. Their fixtures are really good. Hence why I brought in Cunha and he got banned. The other thing I would caveat with Ait Nouri is a lot of people are overlooking Doherty, who's 4.3, plays on the opposite side, is probably equally as attacking as Ait Nouri. Slightly less, but historically, playing for Wolves back in the day before he moved to Spurs, was really, really attacking, getting great FPL points. So if you can't afford Ait Nouri at 4.7 and you need an extra 0.4, I mean, I'm looking to scrape as many million as possible to get her Haaland or someone else in up front. It's a sacrifice that can be made to Ait Nouri for Doherty. And I think it's the same with Kirkez. That boat's kind of like sailed a little bit because he was 4.5 and now he's 5. Seems like a lot to be spending when you could get Hodgson for 4.5 for Bournemouth.
Yeah.
And I don't think Bournemouth's fixtures are necessarily that great from a defensive point of view anyway. So a bit difficult on the defender front, I think, to find players that are going to get you clean sheets. I think you have to go more attacking. The only other one that I put on this list is Wan-Bissaka. He's a good price. He's a great price at 4.4. He's kind of scored and set up a couple of assists recently, and West Ham seem to be a little bit more well structured at the back. So, um, bit of an interesting one defenders wise. I think it's probably less exciting, but I think they're four good options that play in 29 and like longer term look are pretty decent options.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I really like Kirkes. I wanted to bring him into my own team, especially when you talk about Lewis Hall, who's 5.1, 5 mil, probably going to continue to drop a little bit depending on what your average sale price is for him. So whether you get him at 5 or you want to go for 8 Nori, both have great fixtures. Like in terms of Kirkes, I was just pulling them up while you were kind of going through it. And you can see like they're all pretty good, and it's the same for 8 Nori. They're basically 3s or 2s across the board, and here's the 8 Nori ones. They're all really good. But as you mentioned, he's been kind of struggling to score. Really, just that Man City fixture is the only tough one overall. So I figured I'd show those so you can kind of see. But very similar. Those would be definitely the top two. I thought about Kukurea as well. Again, the Chelsea fixtures do get a little bit tougher, but Wan-Bissaka, interesting name. I hadn't thought about him, but every now and then he'll pop in FPL and score some points because he does get down the wing and does provide assists. And I think even he's got a couple of goals this season. So he's been pretty good, surprisingly a little bit more low-key.
Probably the best defender you can get at like 4.4 under, and I think Doherty as well at 4.3. For someone just players that play 90 and are actually in okay defenses and also get involved at the pitch. Midfield's a little bit more exciting. I think Mbuemo, if you don't have him, is just going to be a great asset. I keep banging on about him. We've had him since the start of the season. Bowen, I think, is absolutely fantastic. I brought him in a few game weeks ago, and he keeps just getting like, he's not like a hat-trick player, but he'll get 1 goal and get 3 bonus and just get you 10 points. And he's probably West Ham's best player. He takes the penalties as well. So I think with West Ham's fixtures also playing in 29, Everton away is a great fixture. I really like Bowen. And then, as you mentioned, Kluivert's probably the best from Bournemouth, although I would argue that Semenyo might be more... It's close for me between the two. He takes penalties as well.
Yeah, Kluivert takes pens. That's the problem.
So it's kind of like, what do you do? But Semenyo is cheaper at 5.4. So if you need a cheaper option, I think Semenyo is good. At the start of the season, everyone picked Semenyo over Kluivert. Kluivert was probably in no one's team. But now he's kind of like in the form of his life. So I like Kluivert, and I think a Bournemouth mid is probably going to feature in most people's teams going forward. I've included Mitoma because I think Brighton are kind of on a hot streak at the minute. They're playing really good football. They got a fixture in 29, and you can see them running Man City over, that being like a 3-3 game or something. The way set up is just to attack and not to bother defending. Playing like Rutter in midfield and things like that. So I think having a Brighton asset isn't necessarily a bad thing for the next few game weeks. Obviously, having Fulham at home is a great fixture this week as well. So I'm probably going to avoid Brighton assets, but not really a bad option in the long scheme of things.
Yeah, I don't hate it at all. The hard part for me really is just like that 6.5 price tag for Mitoma, because I wouldn't put him at the level of a Kluivert and even some other players in that range. It's funny you mentioned Semenyo and Kluivert because I want to have them both in the team. And when you watch the games, I've been watching a lot more Bournemouth recently, and it's just like you can see the potential in Semenyo, but sometimes he just doesn't shoot. And it's Kluivert the one that's creating and shooting and taking all the chances. And Semenyo is like setting players up, making good passes. He's very involved, but he just isn't really taking the steps to score the goals and get the opportunities, which is very interesting. But you can see it because the moment he shoots, it's like a rocket off his boot every single time. But Mbuemo, you have to have in the team basically. Bowen, I'm kind of so on, but I was looking at his numbers. He's got 16 points the last 2 game weeks. He has another 10-pointer from 4 weeks ago. So he's been very good. Definitely not a bad asset at all. But the problem is they've been a little hot or cold, and I'm just not all the way in on Bowen. I prefer Kluivert, especially at the price. But outside of that, Tom, I like the list. Mitoma's never getting in my team because when I owned him, he was awful, and he's too expensive. So I'm just going to veto that one. But the rest of the 3 I like for your watch list.
Yeah, no, and I think Bowen's just such a consistent player. I think one thing about this season that I've learned is just to like, if you can set your midfield up with the best player from each team that takes penalties, it's kind of like you're setting yourself up not to fail, and you hold them for like game week, not just like one game week, react and sell them. You probably could have picked on Bowen at the start of the season and said, at this point in the season, they're going to be up there in terms of points because so it's kind of like, okay, fair enough. Mitoma, I do kind of agree with the price tag. It's also the option you could go for Minter maybe, who's been playing really well for them, and a lot cheaper. So it's like, again, trying to balance like price versus performance.
Well, even just you can go down to Iwobi, Rogers, like I guess much cheaper options
Yeah.
than those guys. But yeah, Kluivert's kind of the main one because he scored so many more points than Mitoma. But Mitoma's been good. Like he hasn't been bad. He's dealing with a bit of a knock, it seems, with his knee, but he should be fine and available.
Yeah, and then I think forwards is quite tough at the minute. With given like Mateta's probably out, Cunha's now banned, a few other injuries, and like Isak obviously injured, so probably won't even play this game week, even though it says he's fine. And I saw pictures in training, but I imagine we're going to rest Isak before the final. The only players from the teams on the left hand side that I want to bring in is probably City assets, and I think Haaland's
Okay.
probably the best option for the longer term now. It's just bringing him in. There's not many other strikers. Like Wissa's great. He consistently gets great chances, but he's consistently not good at scoring them. So
He's
it's kind of
frequently
like
offside is the best way to put it.
yeah, like he comes away with like 7 points, but he should have had like a hat trick in a game. So it's a little bit more frustrating, and I feel like Mbuemo is the one from Brentford. If you're going to have one or the other, I'd
Yeah.
still rather Mbuemo. Marmoush, I guess, is an interesting one because I don't think he's necessarily a Haaland replacement, given he plays in the 10, and I think his minutes are going to be managed more than Haaland, who I think will play every game at striker. So I just think it's a good option, but if you're going to go like out and out for it, I think Haaland's just you can't argue that he's probably the best striker in the game at the minute.
Yeah, I mean, you do have someone who's not on this list, which, I mean, it's very on brand for you, but how did you omit Chris Wood from this list? Because Chris Wood had a tough run of fixtures, but, and I will pull them up for you, Tom, they are looking significantly better after this game week. Yes, they have the City matchup, Ipswich United, Villa, Everton, Spurs, Brentford, Palace, Leicester, West Ham, like, they're all fine. And if Forest is going to be good, which they've been good pretty much all season, there's no reason not to like Chris Wood. And I did want to bring up Wissa as well, only because he's a player I've had in my team for a while, and the fixture run actually does get pretty poor going forward. So he's not really a player that you should be buying now, only because that good run of fixtures is basically done after this game week. And, the Bournemouth fixture is still fine, but I don't expect them to play overly well. It's the Villa one at home that I like much, much better. But Newcastle, Chelsea, Arsenal, like it's not going to be very good for them going forward, especially with a decent chunk of those big games on the road as well, where they've been very poor this year. So Weiss is a player that I'm not necessarily going after, but as you kind of mentioned, like there just isn't a lot of options. Like you're not bringing Raul Jimenez, Delap, like sure if you want, but all of these top guys right now are injured, and it leaves you kind of trying to figure out who could be left for the team. Like even for us, we have Marmoush in the team, we have Mateta in the team, who we probably need to replace. So there's a lot of things kind of to figure out at the forward position right now. But getting back to your list, Marmoush though, are you for sure set on, you want to bring in Marmoush? Because the fixtures are solid, like they're not bad, but he scored that hat trick, everyone brought him in, and he hasn't really done a whole lot since.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I've omitted Chris Wood because I've got a vendetta against him, but you've convinced me that those fixtures and Forest being better than Brentford.
And 7.2 price tag, right? Yeah, that 7.2 price tag isn't bad.
Yeah, just pick Wood. Marmoush, I kind of agree with you. I'm not going to bring him in my team. I think he's a good option, but I just think the data sample that we've had, or like the eye test, like it's hard to know how well he's actually going to perform. Yeah. And I think if you don't have him in your team, I wouldn't necessarily be fighting to bring him in unless you think City are going to dominate and he's going to be involved. I just think Haaland's probably the best option. But with the price tag again, if you can't afford or get to him, it's kind of like just stick to what you've got. Or if you're with them, you're trying to switch off a Mateta or someone else, then you're right, it's probably Wood or just another like 90-minute player who's going to, play every game and also going to play in 29.
Yeah. That's the biggest problem. There's not a lot of options right now. Like maybe you just for a 1 week period, you go to Strand Larson, or even if you want to bring in Strand Larson for the weeks that Kuhn is suspended, it's not a bad option. He's probably going to play pretty much every game, but without kind of knowing he's going to play, it's difficult to say, let's transfer him in right now. Could be a transfer target for next week because, it's Everton, Southampton, West Ham, Ipswich, like every fixture that Wolves has going forward is really, really good. But yeah, I really struggle, even with Joao Pedro, like another one. If you just need a cheap option because there really isn't anyone, we're talking about not necessarily even bringing in Wissa. I don't mind Pedro. He's got 3 goal involvements in his last 2 games. Welbeck, if you want to go that route as well. Like, it's really just, I think, Tom, is unfortunately you can't go for Ollie Watkins, and he's probably the player that a lot of people want to go after, but he's 8-9 and he's blanking next game week. So I think this list is good, but forward is tough right now. So I wouldn't overthink it at the forward position, because it is tough and it's not easy. The only other one we didn't bring up is Evan Nielsen. If he plays, he's a good option. He's only 5'6" right now, and we talked about the Bournemouth fixtures. If you don't have too many Bournemouth players in your team, he is a good option as well.
Yeah, and I think before we go on to my next slide, basically what I think I've managed to do, I could be completely wrong, but I think I've managed to build the best attack that you can get in the whole of FPL. So I think more or less, maybe within one or two players, but I think the defense is obviously like not fantastic. But what I want to challenge you to is to pull up the transfers page now. Just get everyone out of the five, out of the midfield and attack. And if you had no budget restraints, what's the 5 midfield? If you're playing a 3-5-2, what's the 5 in midfield you go for, and the 2 at striker?
The 5 in midfield I go for, and 2 at striker.
Yeah, so just pull it up. Let's get the transfers up on the page. Yeah, so you can ignore the defense. You can scroll. You can just delete all them out. And I think if budget is no option for the kind of like this week and going forward, also players, just like longer term, who are you going to pick? And it has to be like a 5 and a 2.
So
Salah goes in.
Salah's in.
Yeah, you've got unlimited budget.
In, Kluivert's in. Even with budget, though, the only question really is Saka. He's not back till April 1st, so he's not coming back then. He's the only one I thought could be coming back. Luis Diaz is fine. I guess it's got to be Palmer, but it's just the points, man. It's not crazy. Rogers, I will be Gordon. No, none of those guys, man.
Yeah, I think it's a bit dreadful.
No one really down there. I know you want me to pick Bowen, don't you? Because Bowen's the one that's... You could go for Son maybe because he's missed some time, but he's been in and out of the lineup. Like Bruno, I'm not there with Bruno, man. I'm just not. Diaz has been up or down all season. And right now, because Gakpo's been hurt, he's been playing a lot more, but he still hasn't been doing a whole lot with it. I think that's it. And if you're going up top, forward's got to be... We're doing 2?
2. Any budget.
For the rest of the season?
Yep.
I think I'm going to go Wood and Haaland.
You're going Chris Wood over Isak.
Man, I'm very worried about Isak. The fixtures aren't crazy. Like, they're good. Yeah. But we can't pretend that Newcastle's playing well, because they're not.
Yeah.
Right? That's the only thing. It's Nah. I can't. I don't even like Haaland like that. We're going Isak. It's just I want to pick Haaland because I think there's a world where he could be the best asset, but it's just he hasn't been that.
I love that you're going with Wood over Haaland, but I like it. The 5 and the 2.
I think it makes a lot of sense.
Do you want to see?
Yeah. So we're going back to your show. Yeah.
Let's do it. This is what we've come up with. Midfield, you're right. You had Mbuemo, you had Palmer, Salah, and Bowen.
Oh, you went.
The only player that's different is Nwaneri because I need to fit him in for the budget. It's Nwaneri instead of Kluivert, which I don't think is horrendous. And then Isak and Haaland up top. I think that back 3 is obviously not great, but you've got a Villa, Fulham, and Wolves defenders, which are all attacking.
Yeah.
So like not the worst defenses, but all attacking and playing 90 minutes, and then Flecken in goals are absolutely fine. So I think that's what I'm trying to get to, and I can get to this with a -4 this week, so I'm tempted to do it, especially because I need to get rid of Cunha. The only downside is selling Trent with Southampton at home, which doesn't quite sit right with me. So I just think the defense, there's no value in it anymore. I know a lot of people are bringing Vardiol and otherwise from like Trent because they've got the money. I just think you kind of want to go all out now for midfield and attack.
I'm kind of with you. Like Haaland is interesting, but it's just when you're factoring in the budget, because you could keep Trent, right? And that's the other side of it is Liverpool. You don't want to have too many assets right now. I mean, you're going to probably still have Salah no matter what, but Trent, as you kind of mentioned, you got to eat it for this week, but then the following fixture, they're going to be all right. You probably don't want to triple up. And luckily for a lot of people, they're coming off the slot assistant manager, kind of like we are. Yeah. So you only had 2 anyways. But I like it. I really do. Like, and the funny thing about this is that it just works. Like, it has a lot of balance, and I think there is still a decent amount of upside. The only thing, though, is cash is going to be off next week, right? Because is Villa unavailable next week? But that's the only one. Villa and Salah, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've got Lewis Hall, so I think I'm going to just transfer him out for someone that plays in 29. But that's the reason I'm bringing in Doherty, Nwaneri, and Haaland, is all 3 of them have fixtures in 29. So it's kind of like I'm picking players that are good for the system now and also playing in 29, which I think is the right balance. And I think in your team, the only difference in the 2 players was, with no budget, you can build whatever you want, was you had Wood instead of Haaland and Kluivert instead of Nwaneri. And if
you went Wood instead of Haaland, you're in business, exactly. Right? Because you have so much
could drop budget. Haaland, you could go Wood and then Nwaneri up to pretty much anyone you want, and then having Trent in defense as well is pretty good. Yeah. So I think for me,
this is Trent and Gavardio. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I say this is balanced, but the defense is obviously weak. But I just think there's no money in the defense anymore. So I'm just going all out with the players that I want, that I know are going to play pretty much 90 minutes, are going to be on the pitch every game week. Probably penalty to Isak, Haaland, and Mbuemo, Palmer, Salah, and Bowen are all penalty takers.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, even if they play rubbish, guarantee goals. And I think Nwaneri at 4.6, a great enabler.
Still a great
obviously
value.
Saka might be back, but I just think for now, I kind of like that balance for my team.
Yeah, like no matter what, even if Saka is back, then he's just on the bench. But while Saka's out and he's starting, 4.6 is ridiculous value because he's delivering at the level of a probably $6 million player, and even higher than that the way he's been playing recently. So I'm with that. I didn't even think about putting him in the team, but yeah, it's definitely a good balance when you have Haaland in the team and you want to get him in, which you seem determined to do. Every time you say, let's get Haaland in the team, he kind of stinks it up. So we'll see, Tom. But I'm excited to see what happens.
Nice. I guess all that's left is to kind of look at our team for next week then.
Oh my God.
It's looking bad.
Goodness. It's tough, man. So we have 3 problems. Lewis Hall's out for the year, right? We do have 2.3 mil. We have 1 free transfer, which is not good. Unfortunately, the way the team sets up right now, because let's go to the team itself, it doesn't set up too poorly outside of Mateta, who we could rotate to a back 4 if we didn't make any changes. But the issue is we still have Dubravka, and we don't know if he's going to play. With 1 free transfer, we could just switch off Dubravka to pretty much any keeper. You had Flecken in your other team. I'm fine with Flecken. We kind of talked about how the Brentford fixtures aren't great going forward, but they're not too bad either. We could go to Sells because we'd have the budget to even go up to Sells if we wanted. We know that Forest, after this week, do have really good fixtures, right? But outside of that, would you want to take a hit to make any other move right now? Because we're probably going to free hit next week, and then we're probably going to wild card out of that free hit, potentially. So do you see a sense in wanting to bring in anyone beyond a keeper just so we have someone who's going to play? And would you even want to ban, like, I guess we'd probably still sell Dubravka anyways, but bring in, someone for Cahill, that way we'd have 2 keepers going forward.
I think we need to get rid of Dubravka because I think he's going to save him for the final, and I think Pope's going to play against West Ham. So I think Dubravka has to go for whoever we pick, and then I'm not really wedded to taking a hit for Mateta into like Chris Wood. I don't think it's worth a -4 to have Chris Wood score 7 points, and then we've got a -4. And also, I'm not sure. I've not had any updates on Mateta if he's definitely out or not. But you've got to think. I don't really want. We're free hitting in 29. So I want to keep the Crystal Palace assets for the double that they've got in 32. So I think he'll probably be back for then. I don't really want to sell Mateta. I'm happy to just play him in our starting 11 and see, and then Digne can come off the bench for us.
Yeah. So who would you want to bring in at keeper then? Because I've been thinking about it a lot, and I just haven't been able to settle on a player. Like I have Henderson now in my team, so that's another issue I have to solve for going into next week. If I don't free hit, which is a maybe. Like Sells is still great. This fixture kind of sucks against City, but outside of that, it's pretty solid going forward. Yeah. Because
I think I
again,
like
like
Sells more because Flecken's fixtures aren't great. He's obviously 0.6 cheaper, and I think we kind of need to think if we were going to go for Haaland, we need budget. But I think we're free hitting in 29 anyway, so we probably won't go with him.
yeah,
So I think Sells is probably the best option there, to be honest with you. Or
feels like
maybe
he's the only
Verbruggen.
option.
Maybe Verbruggen would be quite good at 4.5. We save
Verbruggen's
0.5.
Does he scare you at all? They've been playing a little bit better defensively, but I'm just kind of like, okay, the Chelsea game felt like a bit of a fluke. Southampton, I mean, there's not really a lot of stock in that. They did concede against Bournemouth, but they did win the game. Like, I'm just their defense has been awful all season. They're getting healthier, they're playing better. I just don't know if I want to believe in Verbruggen. Oversells, so I just think will be good.
The only thing I would say is that I don't like spending 5 million on a goalkeeper, even though Sells is the best option. So I'd rather have someone that's 4.5 or below. Why
would you want to go? So what I was getting to, Tom, if you'll allow me for a second, is I wanted to go to the Chelsea keeper because is Jorgensen still playing? He's still playing every game.
We're going to get ourselves in the same trouble as Dubravka, and then we're wasting another transfer down the line. I'd rather just have someone that plays every week and not play keeper roulette.
But keeper roulette is fun, Tom. It's fun. So who are we going to bring in?
It's not fun when we're like, oh,
so you want to go for Bruggen?
I would go. No, I don't know. No, I don't think so. I don't know. It's hard.
We could bring in Pope.
No, there's no point bringing in Pope because then Dubravka's going to play. Oh, let's leave it. Let's think about it. Have we got time to think about it?
It's going to be Sells. It's going to be Sells. It's going to be Sells.
Sells is the best option. I think you're right.
He's going to be the best option. You don't want to pay it, but if we're going to wild card at some point soon, anyways, it's a short term thing. And if we want to keep him, we can keep him. If we don't keep him, then fuck it, we're going to bring in Sells.
Let's get him in.
Yeah.
Love that. Bringing in our one transfer is bringing in a goalkeeper that plays City.
Hey, we got some good life out of Dubravka, so I'm not even mad about that. He hit some clean sheets. So the team sets up pretty nicely. We have Colwill, Trent, Munoz, all with great fixtures, all great clean sheet potential. Bowen, Salah, Kluivert, Palmer, Mateta. If he plays, it'll swap to Digne. But unfortunately, after that, we don't have anybody to come in. Should Digne not play? Marmoush and Isak up top. Tom, who are you captaining this week?
I think we have to go with Salah. I'm going with Palmer in my own team, but I think it's Salah. And the only other thing to say is I'm glad that you've decided to play Colwill this week after leaving him on the bench last week.
It was a quick turnaround.
How many points did we leave on the bench? Is it 14? Yeah, nice.
Big 14-pointer. Cool. Yeah, big 14-pointer. After how many blanks in a row?
Yeah, we finally
8 weeks of blanks.
That sweet payback for holding on to him.
Yeah,
and we benched him.
I mean, he's cheap, and it is what it is. But he's gonna blank this week, and they're gonna concede like 4 goals.
Oh yeah,
because that's just FPL. But that's the team. I think it sets up pretty nicely.
You cool with Salah captain?
Yeah, I'm cool with it. Yeah, the only reason why we wouldn't is if we really want to be different and go like Isak captain or Kluivert captain. I don't think Palmer captain's gonna be that differential. Like, not a crazy differential. He'll probably be this. Do you think he'll be the second most captain player?
I think anyone.
Maybe not after last week.
Because Salah's going to be 99% captained.
Yeah,
that's. And I think some people on FPL Twitter are thinking about Palmer to have like better minutes.
Yes, the minutes for sure.
Home, great fixture, and Salah maybe minutes being managed a little bit.
So how many weeks are we waiting for that bounce back? Is it like 6 weeks now? 7 weeks?
Yeah, but you'd rather wait that long. It's now got to come, surely. It's got to come. I think like 15 points for Palmer this week, I'd guess.
15?
I think 15 for Palmer this week.
I mean, 1.3 expected goals is pretty insane for him not to get nothing out of it, right? And they still scored 4 goals. 1.3 XG is crazy. But I like it, Tom. Right. I think this is the right move. I think there is a world where Forest can blank City. It does seem unlikely, especially when you look at the projections, but I do think it is a big possibility. Do you have anything else for the people before we head out of here? Because I thought we gave a good breakdown. Game week 28, previewing into game week 29, some transfers we want to make or maybe not make potentially, depending on where you're at and the players you're looking to replace. But do you have any final thoughts heading into game week 28?
No final thoughts. That was great. I loved that.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much, Tom, for your astute analysis and breakdown of Game Week 28. I'm your host, Jordan Richards. You can follow me on Twitter or X at your boy Jay Rich, and make sure you're following across the pod on X as well, because Tom does a great job running that feed. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe for all our future content. For Tom, for me, we are out, and we'll see you guys next week for Game Week 29. Peace.